Welcome to the League of Women Voters of Chicago, Zooming with the Alderman interviews. My name is Ilona Vaishnis. The League was founded 101 years ago right here in Chicago and is now active in all 50 states and the US Virgin Islands. We are a wide network. The League is a nonpartisan organization that neither supports nor opposes political candidates. The League encourages informed, active participation by citizens in how we govern ourselves. It works to increase understanding of public policy, and it seeks to influence public policy, but through education and advocacy. We welcome into our ranks civic-minded Democrats and Republicans and unaffiliated women and also men, because men have been League members since 1974. These interviews with the aldermen are part of our effort to educate voters about who speaks on our behalf at the City Council, Chicago City Council. And the council sets the policies and ordinances that govern our city, Chicago. Today, our guest is the alderman of the 12th Ward, George Cardenas.
Yes.
Welcome, Alderman, and thank you for making time for this interview.
Well, thank you for making the time and coming by my end and talking shop about what is it that we do and what it all entails and what our hopes and aspirations.
Okay. Well, this Zoom, just for people who are listening, the Zoom session is being recorded and
Yes.
it will be available on the League website. And we'll be sending you, aldermen, and those who registered for this program but are not League members, a link to the video. We provided Alderman Cardenas our questions prior to this interview. So let us start by looking at the map of all 50 wards in Chicago. Let's see if somebody can show us. Okay, here they are. Here they are. All city of Chicago. And now let's zoom in on the 12th ward. There we are. Alderman, please describe your ward. Where is it and what are the main boundaries? What neighborhoods are there? What is the makeup of the ward?
So on the north end of the ward, which obviously is sort of the tip, and there's a park at the very top. That's Douglas Park, and is divided sort of north and south of the park. The park is about 200 acres, and we take in roughly about 60 of those acres. That's at the very north of the ward. And it zigzags. It includes St. Anthony Hospital, and it comes down. That's sort of like 19th Street, 19th Street parts of it, and it comes down, and it goes west on Cermak all the way to Holman to take in parts of Little Village, and it goes south to 27th in Holman, and it comes down 27 to Sacramento, and then on to 31st, and then on south to Central Park, and we take in parts of the Stevenson, and then west of Bryant Park all the way to Central Park, and we go as far south as 42nd Street on Kedzie, which again zigzags. No ward is it's a square. So our very southernmost part of the ward is 47th and Western, which is also part of Bryant Park. And then we include parts of back of the yards, mostly industrial, no residential, to come north of the ward into McKinley Park, as far east as Ashland, and then Iron Street to the river. So that's sort of the boundaries of the 12th ward.
So what is those boundaries?
I'm sorry?
Tell us a little bit about what is inside those boundaries.
So inside of those boundaries, McKinley Park, for example, which I ended up with McKinley Park. McKinley Park is made up of um, about 56% Hispanics, um, about 19% Asians, and then the difference, also another 19 or 20% whites that make up McKinley Park. And then Brighton Park, it is mostly Hispanic, mostly Mexican American, Mexican American. Um, and Little Village, it's now increasingly more diverse, but about 80% Hispanic as well.
You have some innovative approaches to solving ward problems, like involving high school students in repainting classrooms,
Yes,
or the Clean and Green project,
correct.
or choosing as a renovation project for a schoolyard lined with cement, making it into a basketball court and a soccer field and a playground. You
Yes.
seem to be quite an entrepreneur with what you do in your ward.
Well, my background is um, it's I guess I was an accountant. I was in corporate before I became a politician. I never knew that that's what I was going to be honest. So when I left college, I served in the military, by the way, for those that don't know, United States Navy. And after leaving my military service, I came back to finish a bachelor's degree in accounting and finance. And I subsequently did a master's in political science about 2 years after. Um, and all of that was done through the GI Bill. So I didn't have to pay literally nothing except, I mean, some of the books and some of the fees, but for the most part, it was paid for by my service. Um, and upon completing my degrees, then I went to work for various companies, and I got to learn a lot. I got to learn how to manage resources and how to manage large organizations, how to make decisions, how to be accountable, how to be responsible, um, and how to collaborate and how to get things done.
Yeah, yeah. What would you say are some of the main concerns of the people in your ward?
Well, gee, I think housing I mean, the cost of housing is a big issue. Increasingly, working class individuals are facing a dire situation where more and more the property tax levy makes up a larger amount of their expenses, um, not just the mortgage. So housing it's critical. Obviously, people live in their homes, and there's a place where they can raise their families. So that's important to them. Economic development is very key because it speaks to quality of life. That you can walk to get the things that you need instead of getting on transportation or relying on transportation to get you from A to B. So those things have to be married and have to be looked at as um, you know, together in a way, I guess in a way to say, I get it pretty good here. I can walk to get the things that I need, but if I need transportation, it's there for me. And the education piece is very critical for large families, mostly Hispanic families that rely on on a place where they're going to educate their young and they have a future to look forward to.
You were first elected alderman in 2003. That is 18 years ago.
That's a long time ago, yes.
That is a long time ago. And obviously before that, you had gotten your BA and your MA, and you had, worked for Fortune 100 companies and so on. Would you remember why you ran for alderman the first time?
So I got married in 1999, and I think, life changes when you get married and you start having children. And then you realize that priorities have changed. I used to travel a lot when when I left employment. So I decided to make a change. because life had changed, and so my priorities had changed. And where I was living, I think I realized that the world and the place where I call my community could do better, and that those challenges were not being met. Um, and I decided to do something about it. I said, now that my priorities have changed, and what's in front of me, uh, it's not adequate. And what am I going to do about it? And so I decided to kind of look at and say, okay, our government's not functioning. Our piece of administration, that whoever decides and manages these resources obviously is not keeping an eye on it. And so I decided to kind of look into it. Says I think it could be better managed. It could be a better, more accountable, and definitely more equitable in terms of what the needs and wants of the community.
Do you think you have gotten closer to?
We've definitely accomplished a lot. It's nowhere near where I want to be, but I can clearly say that when folks were clamoring for a library in their community, and we got that built, and we understood that more schools needed to be built, and we were able to build more schools, 2 elementary schools, a high school, um, and a park needed to be built in Little Village, and we got that done as well. We renovated or built a new firehouse and also a police station that it's not in my ward, but it's just not far from the ward, but it was part of our efforts as well, in collaboration. And millions of infrastructure improvements, lighting, streets, sidewalks, things that matter, so that people's cars are not going to be damaged by the huge potholes that sometimes are created after a tough winter. Just give you an idea of the menu of things. On top of the fact that when you build the schools, you create new expectations. You create this opportunity for little kids that perhaps they were being schooled um, in a what do they call those? It's like a one of those remote homes, or it's a box basically, but not a real school. And they can see their lives being changed right in front of them. Um, and so I was very proud to be able to be part of that. And kids light up when they get to be in a classroom and they get to see there's a music room and there's a gym. They can play basketball. They can play all these games. You're literally changing people's lives, and the programming is different. Modular schooling, modular. It's like modular homes, but it's like a box where they used to house kids when they're being taught. When there's not space in their building, the school buildings, but we changed all of that, and I think I'm very happy we did that.
Wonderful. Do you have any other employment? Do you have time for any other employment?
I tried to maintain my skills by consulting. My expertise lies in supply chain management and strategy, corporate strategy, as well as tax regulations. So I try to stay sharp, and from time to time, people are engage me on special projects. But being an alderman became really my full-time passion, because it just demanded it. And people are, expect so much more. The more you do, and the more your people want, because they see you as a guy that gets things done. And so, and I like to work. My work ethic is pretty strong. That's just how I was built.
Yeah, wonderful. Alderpersons make up the Chicago City Council. What committees on the City Council do you serve on?
I chair the Environmental Protection and Energy Committee, and I'm part of 8 other committees like Rules. I'm part of Finance. I'm part of Budgeting. I am part of License Community Protection. I am part of Education. I am part of Ethics and Oversight, and I am part of. I believe there's one more. I believe not transportation, I believe it's permits, permitting in the public way.
You're also the floor leader for the mayor, I understand. Would you tell us what that means?
I am a deputy floor leader for the mayor, which means that my task is to work and collaborate with my colleagues on pending legislation, on political life in the council, on being a conduit for conversations between my colleagues and the mayor, as well as a conduit for business people and other people that want access to government that perhaps they're not getting through. So we're a conduit for many things, but we help govern the city.
A lot of an elder person's time is taken up by ordinances that are required for parking prohibited designations, loading and standing zones, residential permit parking zones, traffic warning signals, grant of privilege in the public way, and so on. Do you think departments rather than alderpersons could make those decisions, provided the word alderperson is consulted?
I think that you could definitely, as I mentioned, my job before politics was very much about creating efficient methods of getting things done. And so, not to be hypocritical, but that's still my thinking. I think that I am very open to creating a path where we can be more efficient, we can be more effective, and it can simply be about power. I think the alderman needs to be part of the process, needs to be consulted, needs to be in the room, if you will, by making those decisions. Because at the end of the day, the community wants that. The community wants representation. They want somebody to be looking at those things so that they're not, in opposition to some of the things happening. Let me give you an example. There's a drive-through. A Dunkin' Donuts wants to come in and build. They have the zoning. They want to. It needs a special use. They go to the zoning board of appeals. They get it. They never talk to the alderman, and so there is maybe a problem with that because the alderman could have offered some insight to alleviate traffic patterns, to alleviate potential fatal errors that may occur. So the role of the alderman is very important because the alderman may also offer additional assistance and additional guidance to that particular project. It could offer additional infrastructure that he or she has their hands on or has access to, and by collaborating, then the project it's better. There's a better outcome for the community instead of being one-sided where decision gets made. Bureaucrat didn't really look at all the finer points, but it was let through because no need for these pesky aldermen to be included. It isn't that. It is mostly about accountability. It's about oversight. It's about somebody looking at that project or that particular issue and ensuring that the community's wishes and wants are being represented.
So let me see if I can understand. If I understand your main point, should departments be allowed to decide on some of these ordinances in consultation with the alderperson, or should it be up to the alderperson?
I think there's certain things like zoning, for example, who the alderman through a community process decides whether to approve that or not. So there's a different process. The alderman has a process where it goes to the community and gets a consensus on that decision. It ought not to be unilateral decision. It ought to be an aldermanic decision based on consensus in the community. Where there's a departmental decision, it's not based on consensus. It's based on someone viewing it and saying, look, I think it should be this way. And so there's variations of how that happens. I will say this, I think that by consultation and working with the community in the community process, it yields better outcomes. That's my point. It cannot be absolutism. It cannot be authoritarianism where one person says, darn it, it's my decision and that's final. No, it's a process where how the decision gets made.
Thank you. The league has long supported having an independent commission rather than the aldermen determining ward boundaries. Would you support creating an independent commission to draw the next set of ward boundaries? If so, what would you want incorporated into such a concept? And if not, what are your arguments for continuing the current practice?
I think more needs to be done to understand each other. I think you cannot have silos. You cannot have a commission that doesn't understand the community. You cannot have a community that doesn't understand the other process or the other thinking. I think that's where I think we sort of don't come and meet halfway. The alderman must be at the table to draw those boundaries because it's the communities that he represents, it's the community wishes that he represents, and those decisions get made along with the rest of the aldermen. I think most of the times, I think people think they're cutting their own deals, but it's census, it's about population, it's about addressing that finer point that no population lives in a perfect contiguous space. And so, you got to take in pieces of population that you may need to draw your boundary. And that's why you see the zigzags, because obviously people live in different pieces and sometimes not directly attached to another. And so you're not going to have a perfect square. It's just impossible. But there are certain wards that I think lends itself, especially the ones that are towards the edge of the city, where there's nowhere to go. You can definitely maybe draw a square, if you will. But the ones in the surrounding city, in the inner cities, it's much more difficult. So to your point, I don't agree that the alderman should not be part of it, but I also don't agree that we are not consult with other groups about how to do what's best for everyone in the city and all constituents.
Thank you. Currently, when one candidate for mayor or alderperson does not receive at least 50% plus one vote in the February election, the top two vote getters are on the ballot in the runoff election in April. Instead of another walk to the polls later for a runoff to determine the winner, some states are switching to ranked choice voting. Let me remind our viewers how ranked choice voting works. In ranked choice voting, a voter ranks their candidates on their ballot by the order of their preference, like number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and so on. If the first ranked choice of more than half the voters gets most votes, that candidate wins, exactly as happens now. However, if there is no majority winner after the first choice, there is a winner at the very beginning, there is an instant runoff. And it consists of counting the votes. The candidate who got the fewest votes is eliminated. And if a voter ranked the eliminated candidate as their first choice, their vote still counts because it is allocated to the second choice candidate. And that process continues until there is a candidate who has the majority of votes. To get back to the question, what is your thinking about using ranked choice voting in Chicago?
I just read about it, to be honest with you. I knew about it, but the whole concept was sort of foreign to me. I had not paid a lot of attention to it until I started reading the race in New York City for mayor. And I think a lot of folks that sort of was tuned into that race started to begin to understand what ranked choice voting really means, which is what you said. The one with the least few votes, in this case, I believe it was Yang, gets eliminated. And then the process, those votes are allocated to those people's wishes. So Yang, for example, and the people that voted for him had chosen Garcia as their next choice. The majority, at least according to the data. And so Garcia then becomes more of a contender, even though she was further down the line because of that choice voting, which means they put her up in second, and then Wiley, I believe, falls to third when she was second behind Adams. And so that's what that yields. The problem I see with choice rank voting is that you could have collusion, and I don't know if that's a term that I should use, but you could have sort of this party collaboration, or candidates collaborating between these campaigns to potentially have outcomes that were not designed by how ranked choice voting was supposed to be. And so I have to study it. Look, I think this whole runoff thing, to me, also doesn't make any sense, because usually in a plurality, if you're going to elect senators here in Illinois and also state reps, it is the majority. If there's several candidates, even for Congress, in the primary, whoever has the most votes wins. And that's it. That's the primary. We stopped having general elections because we became a one-party institution. So that's why they created a general election by having runoffs to make it more fun, I think. I don't know how, because it just makes it more expensive to run another campaign just days later to flush out whoever didn't make through that 50+1. It's tough. It's expensive. But I think that's something that was designed. We ought to take a look at that. If ranked choice voting could replace something like that, then I'm all for that. But I think we ought to do away with this 50+1. It ought to be majority. That's what is designed for. That's what democracy is supposed to yield. Whoever has the most votes wins, whether it's a primary or a general election.
Okay, all right. Well, you still have several years to go because your term ends in 2023.
Correct.
What are some of the things that you really would like to get done during that time and maybe even started?
Well, there's two things that I as chair of environmental protection and energy, my energy, my efforts, are to have a better Chicago. Climate change is here, to have a cleaner Chicago and more environmentally friendly Chicago. And so all my efforts are part of that, part of an effort through the various stakeholders. And I serve on a commission at the county that focuses on environmental issues as well, to be able to come up with not just legislation, but also ideas, and sort of educate our public that it is important for us to make good decisions on daily activities that we have in our lives, how we buy things, how we grow things, and how we throw away things. And so I hope to make a much deeper dent in that. And on the other side of my own, like my duties and as an alderman, I want to go back to how I started, making government work for the people better, by being more efficient, by being more accountable and more accessible. And I think we've gotten away from that. We need to be more accessible. There's a lot of people that need our help, that need our guidance. We live in a very tumultuous time. And we have to use all our common sense to really help folks navigate through these tumultuous times. And a lot of our seniors are going through very tough times because they don't understand what's happening on the outside. They see a lot of turmoil. They see a lot of things that they clearly don't understand from their generation. But they see the impacts of our decisions because they have to pay higher property taxes, higher energy bills, and yet their income hasn't kept up with that, and so they're discouraged by our management, discouraged by our lack of accountability, because they put in the effort, they did their best to educate their children and be good citizens, and we're not doing right by them. We're just not.
So how are you doing right by them?
Well, we want to simplify the process. If they wanted to appeal their property taxes because, gee, they forgot to do the yearly election, which, by the way, I think we finally did away with the senior freeze and the senior exemption. Think about this. We used to make a senior choose an exemption of that she was a senior or he was a senior every year. They had to let the government know that I'm still a senior, which by the time you turn, let's say 65, you ought to be an automatic renewal for you, right? It's not like next year you're not going to be a senior. That doesn't make any sense, right? Things like that. You need to simplify it for them, but more importantly, you have to make it more, affordable for people that we still call it the greatest generation. These are the folks that made what the United States is today, and our society still is today, and we cannot forget about that.
Alderman Cardenas, thank you for being with us today. You are helping many Chicagoans become acquainted with the 12th Ward. And reminder to everyone watching, you will find a link to this interview on the League of Women Voters of Chicago website. And everyone who registered for today's program and is not a League member will receive an email with a link and also an invitation to sign up for notices of our future programs, and also an invitation to join the League. We are always looking for civic-minded, energetic, entrepreneurial people who believe in strengthening democracy. Our next premiere will be Thursday, July 22nd at 6 p.m. with Alderman David Moore of the 17th Ward. We hope you will join us for our coming programs as we learn about Chicago and its elected officials, one ward at a time.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank the Women League of Voters. Thank you so much. God bless you.